It's time for good energy, and I'm Dr. Julie at Endeavor Health and Chiropractic. And today we're talking about how just a little practice can help you get through big stressors. So today, it is a snowy day in southeastern Iowa, and I drove the kids to school and saw yet another mailbox knocked down on my way to school drop-off. That suggests that there are still people in southeast Iowa that don't really know how to drive in snow in town. Now, I know that there are people that aren't very good at driving in snow, but where I'm from up north a little further, Wisconsin, and northern Wisconsin to boot, though that's Minnesotan. I learned that in order to drive in snow, you needed to put yourself into the snowy conditions. Not really difficult if you are driving in town and you see a safe place, but you see a patch of ice, or you see a patch of slush, or you see a big pile of snow. You actually drive your car into it. You drive your car into it because you are driving at 12 to maybe 25 miles an hour, depending upon how you want to cope through the snow. And actually, when you're driving 12 to 15 miles an hour, you get a feel for how the wheel and the tires work when you hit that patch. And yes, there are a lot of hills in this area. There are a lot of steep hills in this area because we've got a lot of watershed creeks and things coming into the area. And so there are a lot of hills that can be slick, but if you have been practicing, and mind you, fun practice, because who doesn't want to figure out what happens when their car gets out of control in a really nice, safe environment? From high school, you always wanted to drive, though I hated this. My boyfriend would take me out onto the ice and we'd drive around in his big old car on the ice and we'd slide. And while the sliding was fun, remember, I have a tendency to, my animal brain was going, but the ice might break, it's not thick enough. So while I didn't enjoy the activity, I really did enjoy the activity of driving four-wheelers on the ice. And I really enjoyed the activity of driving my four-wheel drive beater of a car in the middle of a field in the winter, because you could get a feel for how snow did and didn't work with the car. So yes, fun practice really takes approximately 30 seconds for you to say, hey, there's an upcoming pile of ice. I'm going to reduce my speed, and I'm just going to see what happens if I turn the wheel this way and I hit that. As long as it's safe, as long as there's nobody coming and you know there's enough space between you and the next mailbox, you can start to develop a sense of how to drive in the snow and how to drive in the ice. And I think if everybody thought about it that way, rather than driving on the clear pavement. So if you are driving around town, you will see that there are places where the snowplows haven't cleared entirely, and there are places where they have and people have driven over it, and there is this nice clear path, and everybody just drives that clear path. We're always driving the clear path, but we don't take the little time to practice the low-level stressor of driving in that snow snow pile or ice slush pile that would change how your car responded, and would also do another thing, would help clear the path for people when you have two cars coming, you can't all drive down that same single spot. So this is a PSA for driving on the unplowed and less traveled path. But the point is that sometimes just taking a few minutes, taking a few breaths, taking a few practice runs into something that you're not used to, you usually ride the clear path of. I mean, we don't actively go into stress. But if you take a few minutes to kind of go put your body into a little bit more stress, or your brain into a little bit more stress, or practice how it feels to be in that stressful situation, you can actually start to develop the coping mechanisms that are positive to get through this. So what do I mean? Well, let's say you have a kid, you've decided to go sledding. It's beautiful. The snow is falling. You've decided to go sledding, and your 2-year-old hops on the sled and starts sliding down the hill. Your next goal is to sprint as fast as you can so that you make it to the bottom, because you didn't prepare this child to go in any direction. They just hopped on and went. And that is a stressful situation. But doing exercise, doing a little bit of aerobic exercise. And interestingly, the body only needs like 4 30-second sprints of exercise. It doesn't have to be a sprint. It just has to be hard work for 30 seconds, as hard as you can go. And you could be more able to catch that 2-year-old sliding down the hill without any direction. So again, 2 minutes of practice at an intense level in that case makes your body a little bit more prepared to run after that kid. This morning, I have been shoveling the sidewalks, and I have not been preparing my body to do shoveling. But 2 minutes of doing, even without weights, 2 minutes of doing squats, or 2 minutes of doing weight deadlifts, so you're picking up stuff, would have gotten or even just hanging out, doing some back arches on a ball, would have gotten my back a little more prepared for the stress of shoveling the sidewalk. So all of these are good examples of how practicing just a little bit, a couple of minutes a day, gets you prepared for the more stressful events. And I want to talk to you about mindfulness, because mindfulness is the same way. It's practicing how you would cope with stress by not having any there. Mindfulness, thinking about your body, or thinking about how you're moving through space, or spending some time just doing very concentrated activities where you can start to clear your mind, is actually going to help you when you encounter a stressful situation. When you jump in and you have emotional or time-based stressors, your brain is going to go, instead of freak out, it's going to go, hey, you know what? While I was coloring last week, and I colored for 30 minutes, or I colored for 2 minutes every day, so I made 15 minutes of coloring, I was able to really pay attention to the lines and really kind of just slow my brain down. And in slowing my brain down, that meant that even if it wasn't a stressful activity, I could go into a stressful activity and use that skill that I've picked up. What you might try in the future is, if you know you're going to go through a slightly stressful situation, you might actually try being in your body. Let's say you are going to parent-teacher conferences. And even if you've got the most brilliant, bright kid, it is a little stressful walking into that building with everybody around and everybody else's kids, and you just want to know how your child's doing. If you can take 2 minutes while you're walking into that building and figure out what your body is feeling, rather than thinking about how you're going to talk to them, what you're going to say, what the next line is, if you can take 2 minutes in that mildly stressful situation of just kind of breathing and thinking about your body while you are walking into the school, that's a practice that you need for when life really gets you stressful. So, just like driving into the slush, find a way to understand when you can practice mindfulness in a safe way that is still slightly stressful. So maybe you're in a car in a traffic jam somewhere, and you can feel there's not much you can do. You're kind of stuck there. You can either get really stressed about it, or you can take that time to, You can take that time to connect into your body and figure out where the stress is and figure out, can I let that stress go out of that leg? Can I let that stress go out of that ear? Can I let that stress go out of my throat? And if you can kind of do that in mildly stressful situations, then when you get to majorly stressful situations, or when you're shoveling snow, or when you are running after your 2-year-old falling down a hill on a sled, you can be a little bit more prepared, and you can put yourself into the right position to get that job done. So, as silly as it sounds, today was all about putting yourself into slightly stressful situations and working on, or slightly stressing your body and your mind so that you can be better able to use it when more stressful situations come along. And if any of you have done any scuba diving training, this is like classic scuba training. You always follow all of the rules every single time, even when it's really stupid, like you're just hopping into the 5-foot area. You follow all the rules, you check everything, because if you check everything in the stupid places, then you'll check everything in the highly wired and highly necessary places as well. All right, so your homework, should you choose to do it, is to make sure that you're driving through slush and ice in safe places while you're in town so that you can get a feel for your car. And the other thing is to practice mindfulness when you are in slightly stressful situations. Like maybe you don't like driving through snow in town, and it has a tendency to cause you extra stress. Not much, but extra. Then really, if you can, take the time to kind of figure out where in your body that stress is happening and see if you can relax it. All right, until next week, take care and have a great weekend. Bye.